All right. Well, good morning. Thanks, everyone. Thanks to Brent here at Hudsons in Calgary in the Beltline for joining us for an important announcement about helping to create jobs in this growing Alberta economy. I'm joined by Minister Tyler Shandro, Minister for Labour and Immigration, and we're announcing an expansion of the Jobs Now program to make it easier for employers to participate, and that means easier for folks who are looking for work to get the training for jobs that are available in Alberta today. You know, yesterday I joined Amazon Web Services to announce an historic investment, the largest ever by far in Alberta's tech industry, a $4.3 billion blockbuster announcement that will expand Alberta's economy by $5 billion, create at least 1,000 direct jobs, many more indirect jobs, as proof that the boom in Alberta's digital tech and innovation sector isn't a flash in the pan, it's for real, and it's here to stay. But that's on top of so many other exciting announcements, like the Dow Chemicals announcement of 3 weeks ago, the largest investment in the Alberta economy in at least a decade, an announcement that will create thousands of jobs. Tomorrow I'm going to be in Grand Prairie announcing another major industrial project. And good news like this is rolling right across the province. Lord knows we need it in Alberta after 5 tough years and the past 18 brutal months. But the great news is this, Alberta is now leading Canada in economic growth by a country mile, and we are projected by The Economist to be doing that again next year. We have seen the creation of about 60,000 net new jobs over the past 3 or 4 months. Stats Canada reported last month that our unemployment rate fell pretty sharply. We are second to British Columbia in job creation in Canada so far this year. We've replaced all of the jobs lost since the beginning of COVID, and in fact, many employers are reporting skill and labor shortages as one of their top challenges. So we want to be there to support them and to connect the 7.6% of unemployed Albertans to the jobs that are available, but also to help upskill the existing workforce for jobs that are available. And that's why we launched the Jobs Now program a few months ago, a key part of Alberta's recovery plan. And this is a program, it's a nearly $400 million investment split between the provincial and federal governments, together with the other $400 million that we are investing in job training and skills development. This represents by far the largest investment in Alberta history by government in job training and skills development, a key part of Alberta's recovery plan. We launched that plan back in June of last year, 2020, at the bottom of what I call the double recession, the global COVID downturn on top of the collapse in energy prices, which hit Alberta harder than anywhere, I think, in North America. And we knew we needed to get ahead of that economic crisis with the recovery plan. It's a bold plan to build, to diversify, and to create new jobs. And a key part of it is addressing the growth of our labor market, connecting people to those jobs. And so today, we are announcing that as of tomorrow, applications for the next round of funding for the Jobs Now program will be open. And we've made changes that will help more businesses train new staff and give Albertans the chance to learn skills they need for today's job market. In the first round, we approved about 2,700 applications, representing about 14,000 new jobs for Albertans. We had to close the application intake because, in fact, demand was so overwhelming. Now, we recognize that the pace of recovery is different in different businesses and different industries. And we wanted to make sure that there's enough money in the pot for the planned 2-year rollout of this program. So having spaced application periods will allow businesses who start the recoveries later to take advantage of the program, so it's not all gone. Alberta's recovery depends on getting more folks back to stable jobs, and that also includes Albertans with disabilities who tend to have higher levels of unemployment despite a desire and willingness to work. The Jobs Now program is set up so that employers can apply for a grant that covers 25% of an employee's salary or training costs. But if they hire an Albertan with a disability, they're eligible for up to 1.5 times that of other new employees. We are also getting rid of the requirement that Albertans must be hired to work for 30 hours a week for their position to be eligible for funding. Workers must now only work 15 hours a week to be eligible. This will allow more Albertans with disabilities and to get hired, and more employers, give employers greater flexibility in how they use the program. Minister Shandro will fill in some of the other details about the changes to the program criteria, but the key point we want to send today is to employers. If you're looking to bring new people on board, you're in your own Alberta business recovery, and you need just that little bit of a boost to onboard new staff and to train them up. Help is here in the Alberta Jobs Now program. And of course, many other programs that are available as part of the recovery plan, including the Innovation Employment Grant, jobs that are related to tech and innovation or research are eligible for that as a separate grant to support the growth of Alberta's dynamic tech sector. But with that, I guess I'm going to hand it over to Minister Shandro to provide more details, and we'll hear from Brent, and then we'll be happy to take questions.
Well, thank you so much, Premier, and I'm so excited to be here today to talk about the launch of our second phase of the Alberta Jobs Now program. As the Premier mentioned, we saw great success during the first intake with approximately 2,700 applications from employers across the province. And together, these applications total nearly $182 million. They're expected to help thousands of Albertans get back to work in the coming months. But we committed to gathering feedback from our industry, business, as well as our nonprofit partners to see how we could make the second round of the program even more successful and help even more folks get back to work here in Alberta. And as the Premier touched upon, based on that feedback, we made improvements to the program, which will help more job creators grow their businesses and more folks get the skills that they need to be successful, now as well as into the future. And the first improvement that we're making, we're now including businesses and organizations that have been incorporated or registered for less than 1 year. Those businesses can now apply to the program. And that'll open the program up to even more businesses, help attract even more job creators, and more investment to our province to support our recovery. We've also reduced the number of new hires that employers can apply for during this intake period from 20 to 10. However, exemptions, I should say, for up to 20 new hires will be made if employers can demonstrate that need. And we've also reduced the amount of days that employers have to hire into those positions once their application is approved. We're changing it from 120 days to 90. And these changes we're making will free up funding more quickly in cases when employers aren't able to fill approved positions. And in turn, spread funding to more employers to support broader economic recovery. And we're also improving the program to make it even more inclusive and accessible to all who are looking for work. We're reducing the number of hours that a new hire has to work under the program. We're cutting it in half. And that means that new hires only have to work 15 hours per week rather than 30. That'll open the program up to support the needs of more businesses and more Albertans, and in particular, including those with disabilities. And this is an important highlight to be making. As with the first phase of Alberta Jobs Now, employers who hire folks with disabilities will receive a grant that's 1.5 times higher than the amount that they receive for other new employees. And this can be as high as $37,500 per employee. We know that folks with disabilities are often underrepresented in the job market. However, every Albertan, regardless of the barriers that they may face, they deserve the opportunity to participate in their communities and in the workforce. So this change will help make the program more inclusive and accessible to all Albertans and enable a diversity of skills and experience to contribute to Alberta's economic recovery. The last change, and remember that our focus is on hiring unemployed and underemployed folks. However, employers can now fill available positions with employed Albertans if there is a business need. So this will help reduce unnecessary red tape by ensuring that businesses can hire the best suited candidate for their available positions. Now, with all of these changes in place, we're optimistic that the Alberta Jobs Now program supports even more employers to hire and to train new workers and continue to help the successful rebound of our economy and our future. I also want to note that employers who have hired workers since the start of the program on May 20th, but have not yet applied, are able to do so during the second round, as long as they meet the eligibility requirements. So if you were previously declined because your employee wasn't eligible, but now qualifies under this new criteria, I'm encouraging you to reapply during the second phase. And applications will open tomorrow morning. I encourage employers to go to alberta.ca/jobsnow to learn more and to apply. Now, this significant investment is making a difference for Alberta. Slowly but surely, we're seeing investment and jobs return to our province, and more Albertans are getting back to work. But with thousands of Albertans remaining unemployed, there's still more work to be done. And with the Alberta's recovery plan as our guide, we'll continue to take action to help create jobs and diversify the economy to build a stronger, more resilient future for the province. And today's announcement is another critical step towards that future. Thank you. I'll now ask Brent to come on up and say a few words.
So first of all, I'd like to thank the Alberta government for creating a program that helps Albertans get back to work by helping the businesses with the cost of hiring and training new staff. This has given Hudsons the ability to more easily hire inexperienced staff and give them the proper training needed to execute great guest experience. With the stresses that Albertans have been facing through the pandemic, our guests have had on numerous occasions told us how much they appreciate the service that our staff provides. I believe we all need a safe place, a place that we can get away from all the stresses of life, even if it is for a moment in time. What we noticed back in June, when we believed the pandemic could be reclassified as the endemic, that was a lot of our staff, over the course of the pandemic, had switched careers, had moved on to a different phase of their lives, and in so it has created a vacuum in our industry. So, in turn, we've had to hire more inexperienced Albertans, and the Alberta Jobs Now program is helping us do that. It's helping us cover the extra costs of making sure that they are properly trained, as well as allowing us to hire staff during a time when we are not quite certain of how busy we can expect to be. As far as the program itself, it was easy to apply for, and inputting employees' information has been fairly easy to navigate. Where I've had any questions or I've improperly filed something, there's always been somebody there to support and help me get through the program. So it's actually been really easy to go through. Hudsons Canada's pubs are very appreciative of the much-needed provincial support we have received from the Alberta Jobs Now program. The recovery is difficult, and our industry is still well below our pre-pandemic sales levels, and the cost increases continue to hamper our industry's ability to hire back staff. Our goal is to employ Albertans and deliver a great guest experience, and the Alberta Jobs Now program is helping us do that. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now move over to our media Q&A. Just a reminder to our journalists in the room to ask your question to the podium mic, and please start with your name as well as the outlet you're with. And just because you're the only one here, we're going to start with you before jumping to the phones.
This is for the Premier. First off, of course, as you know, healthcare workers' vaccine mandate deadline is November 30th. We've seen other provinces scrap that, Ontario and Quebec. Do you plan on doing the same, and if so, when and why?
Well, first of all, we obviously think it's important for folks working with patients in hospitals to be fully protected from COVID-19 because if they're not vaccinated, they do have a higher chance of transmission to patients who are more vulnerable. So I think it's a reasonable professional requirement that people working in a healthcare capacity should be, there's always been, for example, a vaccine requirement for a number of different vaccines in order to work for Alberta Health Services or Covenant Health. So that's a long-standing employment requirement. So I understand why Alberta Health Services has brought in a vaccine mandate for COVID-19, which is more lethal and has had a much bigger impact on our healthcare system than the other diseases for which people must be vaccinated to work in the hospitals. Having said that, AHS has extended by 30 days the deadline for being vaccinated. I believe that they have about 95% of their workforce, at least their full-time workforce, their non-casual workforce, 95% have provided proof of vaccination, and only about 87 resignations out of a total workforce of about 110,000 people. And I think last I saw, fewer than 1,500 applications for exemptions. So the number of people who are appear to be refusing to get vaccinated is a tiny fraction, and in around 1, maximum 2% of the healthcare workforce. Now, we have asked AHS to make sure that that they do not impact the capacity of the system and that the way that they apply this rule, by which we mean if they find a particular, let's say a smaller rural hospital or long-term care center where there's a significant number of the frontline staff who are not complying, we're asking AHS to exercise common sense in those situations and not to undermine the quality of patient care and the way that this is applied. Apart from that, this is an AHS management decision. We'll wait to hear back from them if they choose to make any modifications. But once again, we would just encourage folks in the healthcare system to follow the science, protect their patients, and get vaccinated.
I didn't introduce myself, Tyson Ford, CTV, but quickly just following up on that in regards to Calgary Police. They mentioned today that there's still a small percentage of employees that have not given their vaccine status. The chief says this could have operational challenges within the force. Is there anything the province can do to help this need, or potentially does the city need to hire more police officers?
Well, that's really a city and a Calgary Police Commission issue, and we respect their management authority to make decisions like that on their workforce. I do think, look, what we've done in the Alberta Public Service is to mandate vaccination or regular negative testing. So I do think that's one way of accommodating the tiny number of people who work in the public sector who are refusing to get vaccinated while maintaining a safe workplace. So that's what we've done, and that applies, for example, to our provincial our provincial prison guards, our provincial sheriffs. We have our own police service. That is to say that we're asking them to get vaccinated, but if they don't, to take a rapid antigen test with a negative result at least a couple of times a week. So, because they as well are serving the public in the front line, and we have a responsibility to ensure that we have a safe workforce. So I think that rapid test option makes a lot of sense, and we would just propose that because at the end of the day, if there are some people who are absolutely determined not to get vaccinated, getting the rapid test can demonstrate that they're safe to work. I think that can be a sensible compromise.
Thanks, Tyson. And now, since we've wrapped up in-person journalists, let's jump over to the phones. Operator, can you please put through our first call?
Tom Vernon, Global News.
Hi, Premier. Thanks for taking my question. I want to get a response to something you said last week. You told the voters, or mentioned that the voters in Fort McMurray-Lac-Laudish should look at Brian Jean's track record. One of the things that you mentioned was him leaving the legislature early before the end of his term in 2018. He has responded. He said he left because you didn't talk to him for 4 months, and that you didn't want him there. Do you have any reaction to the reason he's given for leaving?
Well, that's not accurate. I spoke to Brian the day after I was elected leader of the United Conservative Party in November of 2017, and invited him to consider any position that might be interested in the shadow cabinet or in the legislature in the official opposition. I said he was a critical member of the team, wanted him fully involved in a senior role a front bench role in the party and the caucus. And he said he wanted to think about it. He texted me, I believe, the next day and said that he had decided that he wanted to take a bit of time to step back, reflect on his future. And my reply was, I respect that completely. As soon as you want to get re-engaged, there will be a position for you. And please let me know when you'd like to speak again. And I didn't hear back from Brian until he called me a few months later to indicate that he was leaving his seat. So I respected his decision. We did everything we could to invite him to take a meaningful leadership role. The point about my comment was simply this, that Mr. Jean did not complete his term as an MP. He did not complete his term as an MLA. At the beginning of the 2019 provincial election, he was preparing to take over the Freedom Conservative Party, a different party, and about a few weeks ago, he was indicating his desire to start a, quotes, new centrist party in Alberta. So my point was that as a member, he's welcome to run for the nomination, but I think that members might want to ask about how serious he is and committed, or whether this is just another unpredictable development in his political ambitions.
And Tom, do you have a follow-up today?
I do, and I mean we're still a couple steps away from this, but when Todd Loewen publicly called for you to step down as leader, it didn't take long for him to be removed from caucus. You now have Brian Jean running to rejoin the party, rejoin the caucus if he wins a nomination into a by-election. How do you view caucus working if that voice is inside caucus itself, someone who is actively campaigning to have you removed as leader?
Well, all I can say is that our caucus polices itself in terms of the need for unity and discipline, and I believe the vast majority of my colleagues want a united government that's focused on the priorities of Albertans, not internal politics. Albertans are telling us to focus on their priorities and not on settling scores in an internal political dispute. I don't think that's what Albertans are looking for.
Okay, operator, can you please put through our next caller?
Steve Kaiser, City News.
Hi, good morning. Thanks for taking my question. Just to follow up on that, Mr. Premier, obviously Brian Jean's been openly critical of you here. Now he's saying he wants to run for UCP leadership if a race is called. Is your party in trouble when you have someone like Brian Jean undermining you and planning to continue to undermine you?
No, I don't think so, because he was doing that before the last election, and we won the largest mandate in Alberta electoral history.
Do you have a follow-up today, Saif?
Fair enough. Now, I guess what I'm wondering is whether or not you feel you can still run the party when you have people like Brian Jean in the party saying that there are other members who share his same sentiments.
Mr. Jean's been trying to destabilize our party for going on 3 years now. I regard that as a distraction. We are focused on doing the people's business right now on economic recovery. And what we see is Alberta, I believe, headed into a boom. And that is in part because of the open for business policies of this government. It's partly because of our recovery plan. And I'm happy to be, for this government to be judged by our results. I'm not going to be distracted by somebody trying to settle scores with internal political games.
Okay, operator, can you please put through our next call?
Audrey Neva, Radio Canada.
Hi, my first question is for the Premier, so if you could please answer in French and English, that would be appreciated. Thank you. Given that when Mr. Loewen called publicly for your resignation, he was out of your caucus by the end of the day, why is someone like Leela here, who is also calling for your resignation, still in caucus?
Well, our caucus makes decisions, and they don't. I think our caucus wants to stay focused on the people's business, and not get distracted. I can't reveal the details of caucus discussions or the full context of various decisions that are made. But I can say that the overwhelming majority of the government caucus is focused on doing the people's business, on economic recovery, on keeping our commitments to Albertans. And we can see the results now with Alberta charging ahead with the strongest economy in Canada this year, and we believe again next year, with tens of thousands of Albertans getting back to work, and with optimism coming back to our province after a tough couple of years.
Okay, Audrey, do you have a follow-up today?
Before my follow-up, could I please ask you to respond to this in French too, please?
Okay. Je ne peux pas parler des discussions à l'intérieur du caucus du gouvernement. Évidemment, c'est confidentiel, mais je peux vous dire que la grande majorité des députés conservateurs sont axés sur les priorités des Albertains, particulièrement la croissance économique, la recouverte de la récession. Et nous pouvons voir les résultats avec une croissance économique et des emplois le plus important au Canada à cause, en partie, à cause des politiques de ce gouvernement, à cause de nos politiques pro-croissance économique. Et je crois que nous voyons les résultats du plan de recouverte économique de l'Alberta. Et mes collègues sont axés sur ces priorités-là.
Sorry about that, Audrey. You can go ahead.
Thank you. Shifting back to the Jobs Now program, just to be clear, could you please state how many thousands of jobs you were actually applied for? I know they need to be filled, but if you could specify that. And also, why has no provision been included to also focus on the post-secondary as other provinces have also done with that kind of program?
Okay, thank you. First of all, we've had, I think, 23 applications result from businesses, resulting in the creation of over 14,000 new jobs, and we expect to see tens of thousands more through the balance of the program. I believe there's $280 million in balance left to spend on the program, so that would be well north of 20,000 additional jobs that would be supported if we see a complete, if that money and the program is fully subscribed. So I would say to estimate an additional 20,000 jobs at least that would be supported. And in terms of post-secondary, I don't quite understand the question. Of course, the government of Alberta supports post-secondary education. Every degree program in the province, every trade program is supported with taxpayer funds. And in fact, we continue to have the highest percentage of population in Canada with post-secondary education. One thing we are doing in the post-secondary sphere is our Skills for Jobs initiative, which is working with our colleges and universities better to align their programs with job outcomes. Because we don't want to force taxpayers to subsidize post-secondary programs that lead to unemployment. We need to ensure that young people are getting training and experience and education that will set them up for a successful future. And increasingly, that's why we, through our Skills for Jobs program, we're bending the curve in, for example, our post-secondary funding formula towards a greater emphasis on experiential learning, things like co-op programs, apprenticeship programs, and practical learning programs, towards skilled trades training, like they do in much of Europe. So that is, I guess, our labor market approach in the post-secondary field is to work with the universities and the private sector to increase experiential learning that have programs that have very strong labor market outcomes. And I'll try to say that in French. Tout d'abord, on a vu 2300 employeurs qui ont déposé les demandes pour le programme de Jobs Now, qui ont créé environ 14 000 nouveaux emplois. Et si le programme est utilisé entièrement, nous estimons un autre, je dirais, 20 000 emplois qui seront supportés par les subventions de Jobs Now. Quant au système de l'éducation postsecondaire, nous avons le Skills for Jobs programme, les habilités pour les emplois programme qui est axé sur les réformes dans le système de l'éducation postsecondaire dans les collèges et universités pour mettre l'accent sur les programmes avec les bons résultats dans le marché de main-d'œuvre et particulièrement dans les métiers, dans l'éducation expérientielle, dans les apprentissages, etc. Alors, nous avons modifié la formule pour les subventions aux universités et collèges à cet égard pour encourager l'appui pour les programmes qui mènent vers les bons emplois pour les matriculés.
Thanks, Premier. Operator, can you please put through the last caller we have on the line today?
Adrienne Williams, CBC French.
Hi, my question is also about today's announcement about the job creation. Can you tell us more about the industries in which the companies that have applied or the businesses that have applied to for your program are in?
Yeah,
what industries can we find those new jobs in?
So to date, 22% in accommodation and food service sector, like here at Hudson's Pub, 11% in construction, 8.2% in professional, scientific, and technical services, nearly 8% in manufacturing, and 7.5% in retail. So those are the main categories. So it's a pretty broad distribution, but the main one would be 22% in accommodation and food services. And as we heard from Brent, the manager of this restaurant, I think this reflects the fact that this industry, the hospitality industry, was hit hardest. Most of those other industries I mentioned were largely unaffected by public health measures in the past 20 months, but obviously restaurants and hotels with the lack of travel have been hit super hard. And that's created a rupture in their workforce. A lot of folks that used to work in restaurants like this who kind of gave up through COVID because of all of the opening and closing, and they've gone on to other things. And so this is an industry that really needs to bring in a lot of new workers and train them up, and I think that's why we see the greatest demand in the hospitality sector.
And Adrienne, do you have a follow-up today?
Well, could the Premier answer in French about why the the hospitality industry is the one that has been hit the hardest and that has applied the most?
Oui, le secteur où nous voyons la demande la plus large est dans le secteur de l'hospitalité, par exemple les restaurants, parce que ils étaient affectés sérieusement pendant les mesures de santé publique, pendant la pandémie. Alors, avec les fermetures des restaurants et les autres entreprises dans ce domaine-là, il y a eu une rupture dans leur main-d'œuvre et beaucoup de leurs travailleurs, franchement, ils ont quitté l'industrie. Alors, il y a beaucoup de demandes à cet égard pour attirer les nouveaux emplois et pour faire leur formation. Et je crois que ça, c'est la raison pour laquelle nous voyons la plus grande demande dans le secteur-là par rapport aux autres industries qui n'étaient pas vraiment graves et touchées par les mesures de santé publique.
Okay, Adrienne, you can go ahead with your follow-up.
No, I think it's okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
All right. Lots of French this morning. Okay. Probably more than usual at Hudson's Pub, I'm guessing.